Welcome back to another amazing episode of the FitBiz Journey Podcast. Guys, this time I have Garza, who is a founder, a chief executive number cruncher, and a small business superhero. And who better is to have to talk about numbers than herself, Tina. And I'm super excited because we're going to talk about the Paycheck protection program and all the loans and grants out there. And she's going to drop a link in the video, throughout the video, for you collected all the grants and all the loans that you can get as a personal trainer and as a gym owner. So I highly recommend to watch this episode because she has done so much work to collect all of it for you. It's basically anything and everything that she was able to research and get for you guys, and it's going to be in this video. So make sure to watch this episode. It's going to be epic and very helpful for you. All right, so Tina, thank you so much for being on our podcast. I really appreciate taking the time to coming on a podcast because I assume that you are quite busy right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy right now, but I'm really glad that I can be here and offer any guidance to you and anybody that's watching or listening.
Yeah, and that was the number one thing, but I had in mind who should come on the podcast to able to speak to gym owners and personal trainers. And just in business general right now, I was like, you came up right away. You were my number one, and I right away messaged you when I thought of it. And thank you again for being here because that means a lot to me and means a lot to all of our community right now.
Great, thank you.
So Tina, guys, and real quick, before we even get started, I just want to say a few things that I first saw you, I think, at the GSDCon, the first GSDCon, and you were speaking about numbers of all things. And usually when people think of that, they are like, oh man, we're going to talk about accounting, maybe taxes, maybe this and that and that. And then everybody just like not interested, right? Even the room, I think everybody, when you first came onto the stage, nobody was interested. They were like, I don't really need to know numbers. And then you actually came, yeah, exactly.
Taking a nap.
Yep. But then you came out and then you actually made numbers fun. So
thank you.
And that happened 2 times. So it was so funny because everybody said the same thing. They are like, oh man, why do we have to have numbers and all that? And then you actually talk so passionate about numbers and you know your craft so much that you actually made it fun for the people who are actually watching, that everybody was sitting up and looking at you like this. And then I'm pretty sure that night everybody went home dreaming about numbers that you were talking about, because I did.
Good. That's good. Good homework for sleep time.
Yeah. So guys, I guess it was the perfect timing. It's kind of bittersweet, but the day when I recorded this interview with Tina a few days ago was the day when the government announced that the money dried up for small businesses. So I wanted to find out exactly what that means to us small business owners. So let's find out from Tina. So I just wanted to mention that because, especially before we get into numbers and all this, although right now I think everybody's paying attention to them, just because it's so crazy out there. And right away, I wanted to start out with just, most people want to know this, so I figured we just get it out of the way, but because it happened today. So what does that really mean, what the government said today, that basically the money is drying up for what they have assigned it for?
Right, so there's a few different loan programs that have been available through the CARES Act. One is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and 2 is a Paycheck Protection Program. That one was a bigger fund. It had $349 billion available in it. But as of today, the funds have been completely spoken for. So there is a plan to add additional funds in the future. And I think that our administration is working pretty quickly to get that going. But if you have not already received a loan approval or funding, if you're still waiting in line, there are, I think, 700,000 other businesses who are in the same position.
Wow.
So don't, of course, it's really scary, but I think that there's still hope, for everybody. So just be a little bit patient, because the funds, I think, are going to be on the way soon.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask you a specific question also about the PPP, right?
Right.
Paycheck.
It's easier to say that rather than the whole thing.
Exactly. So what I wanted to ask you is, because to my understanding, but I could be completely wrong, so what it's sounding like to me that you can get up to 2.5 times of basically what was your payroll per month, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, you can use X amount of percentage for additional bills and rent and that kind of stuff, right?
So the qualification is on payroll costs, but it's more than just the gross wages. It's gross wages that are listed on a W-2. Any of your employer-sponsored benefit programs, so retirement and health insurance, things like that, and the state and local taxes. So it's actually bigger than if you're just using the gross wages. And we had to work really diligently to make sure we got the highest loan amount. And for that, you're qualifying on essentially 12 weeks of money, but given 8 weeks to spend it. So what they're trying to do is, from the point at which you get the money, they're trying to get people back to work and make sure that they're still paid at the same amount. And, you know, you keep the same headcount on staff to help reduce the burden on unemployment insurance. And the reason they give you the extra weeks, you know, to fill in the gap is to pay for things like rent or utilities or interest on your mortgage notes or interest on other notes. So they add a little bit of flexibility and padding for operating costs. But the main focus of this is really to get payroll, you know, people back on payroll, which is why they have noted in their interim final guidance that when we're looking for forgiveness, which is the big benefit of this program, is that at least 75% of the funds are paid on payroll. And because that's what it's intended for.
And then, so, but it is a loan, so it's not a grant. The grant is, we'll talk about that too in a minute.
Well, it is a grant if you pay for the things in the right period. So if you spend the money on qualifying expenses, you should be able to get that forgiven. So it's just like it reduces the total loan amount. But that being said, if you don't have the proper documentation, like you haven't been tracking things correctly, you don't pay people, you don't use the funds as they're intended, you're going to submit your forgiveness, which is not automatic. You have to actually apply for it. You could potentially be stuck with a larger bill that you didn't expect to be stuck with. So the real important thing is, we've been telling our clients, we need to look at your loan docs to understand the origination date and when the end of that period is. So it's the start date plus 8 weeks or 56 days. And then we need to make sure that we get everything well documented. So we have a history of actually what that money was spent on. So you don't get stuck with it later.
Okay, that makes sense. And that clarifies lots of things. So guys, hope you're listening to this. Yeah. And so hypothetically, I can't even say that word. So anyways.
It's okay.
So when, let's say they receive these loans, as long as they're able to prove that they have paid the people and didn't let them go, or they rehire them by a set date, I assume, right?
Right.
Then they should be forgiven X amount of the actual loan that they have taken. But the bottom line is that I was thinking, but this is a loan, besides X amount is forgiven, right?
Right.
So what if, because I don't know, so I'm just thinking, and I'm watching the news every day. I recommend it to everybody, just only watch one news source, so at least you get the same information each day, and then something different. But I watch it every morning, and then I watch European and American. So because two different stories, and then just when they thinking that they would reopen the market, everything, and the gyms. So of course, especially in Europe, surprisingly, they talk a lot about fitness studios and gyms when they're gonna able to use them again. And that's literally the bottom of the list overseas. So the only reason I brought this up to you, so we could possibly talk about maybe numbers in a way that what would it mean to basically gym owners if they would need to stay open, let's say till September 1st. So today it's, let's say, I'm not saying that's going to happen, just the word
hypothetically.
There we go. If that's the case, what would that mean to them? Because then if they take on this loan, that means in order to be forgiven, that they have to use it to able to keep all the employees, but then that this money wouldn't be able to cover all of the costs, right? So now I would like to find out, what is this PPP really for? Like, is this a loan? Is this a grant? Or what should I use it for? And how can I make it forgiven? Meaning, if I use it for some purpose, then will I get the money for free? Or how much should I have to pay back? How does it really work?
So this is more than just gym owners. It's people like restaurants who've been mandated to close, daycare facilities. And so the idea is you get people back to work, or you at least get them back on your payroll. And they don't necessarily have to have something to do, and that could tend to be a problem. But once that 8-week period is over or whatever, the money is going to be gone and you might not be able to open up again. Yeah. So hopefully what I'm thinking that they're trying to do is buy a little bit of time in order to get people like state unemployment insurance offices up to speed, get their technology in place, be able to start helping people who do eventually go file for unemployment. because
I see.
every single state is completely overrun right now. I mean, there are millions and millions of people out of a job right now. I mean,
Yeah.
the last time I looked, it was like 12 million. It's probably 15, 16 now. I have no idea.
Oh,
It's a lot.
it was 20 this morning.
20.
Yeah.
Okay. I just like,
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at
It's
that. I've been
crazy.
so heads down with the payroll protection program.
Yeah.
But the idea is hopefully to get them paid in the meantime. But eventually you're going to have to either let them go or, furlough them, whatever you need to do. And if there's another round of funding that we can apply to business owners, great, but I wouldn't rely on it. I would say that this is a stopgap in the meantime until something else happens or businesses begin to reopen. But ultimately, so I'm in Denver and our restaurants are closed until mid-May. I have a feeling that we're probably going to be still like self-quarantining until June, maybe mid-June. And beyond that, we'll probably have some social distancing orders in place locally. So restaurants, I don't think are going to be able to open at full capacity. Gyms will probably be able to reopen, but not at full capacity. So if you haven't already started to think about ways that you can generate additional revenue without being in person, then now is the time.
Yeah.
And I know Loud Rumor, Mike Garza is really, really smart in helping people create like a workout from home kind of program, like you're doing Zooms and you're training and adding additional kinds of coaching. That's an excellent way to help fill the gap or, make sure that you still have money coming in. But I wouldn't rely on things opening 100% when we don't even have the testing available right now. We don't really have any idea of what the true cost of this is really going to be. So make sure that you, number one, apply for the funding and use it properly when it becomes available. Make sure that you understand your financial position and find other resources in order to continue having money come in.
Yeah, so that's a really great point, because to me now it's clear, well, I hope it's not really, that's what it is, but it almost sounds like that the money right now that we can get is just like you said, it's literally just a pause on unemployment to help ease all the states and everything for the real unemployment when it really hits.
Right.
But then the problem is then the business owner is still going to be at the same boat if they're not able to reopen. So if not worse at that point. So now we were brainstorming on how you guys should reach out to your landlords and how you should push out some of the bills that you have. And we have tested a few things. So, and Tina had some ideas from her clients. So we wanted to share it with you guys. So make sure to write these down and practice it and let me know which one worked so we can share it to everybody.
I actually did an interview with one of my clients that I'll be posting on YouTube and everywhere else, probably today or tomorrow. He's a commercial real estate broker, and he talks about how you can work with your landlord to get an adjustment on your rent. And I think if you think about it from the landlord's perspective, like at the very beginning, if you ask for assistance, like reducing your rent, they're probably going to give you some pushback because they think that things are going to turn around, but things haven't. So you still have some opportunities to go in and start to renegotiate the terms of the loan, or terms of the rent agreement or whatever you currently have to be more in your favor, because ultimately, if they have the 0% occupancy rate, like doesn't really help them at all. They do need something coming in. So in that case, he goes through how to negotiate this. But and on our call, he talks about like you want to make sure that you have no more than 10% of your total revenue being targeted towards operating costs. So like if you're spending 15 or 50 or whatever percent on operating costs, or occupancy costs, not operating, occupancy costs, then you might be in trouble. So if you have an accountant that you can work with that can show, historically we've had a 10% occupancy cost, which is reasonable. Moving forward, our revenue has a severe decline. This is a forecast that shows what I can afford to pay you based on what I think that we will generate. If we keep within that 10% occupancy cost, this is what I can give you and be reasonable about it. And so he goes through more in detail about that, but now is the time to start. If you don't already have a set of numbers, like an accountant or numbers to look at, really spend your free time figuring out what does it actually take to run your business. So your facility, your people, like everything end to end, what do you need to start negotiating on? But if you're just operating blindly and you're just choosing numbers out of the sky, your landlord's never going to give you any sort of discount. They're not going to work with you because you're not a serious business owner in their eyes. Yep.
Well, to us, with all the locations, it was easy for us to show, but we're still negotiating, by the way. Yeah. One thing that it seems like that they're more open to is to ask them to, let's say right now, the current rent, we pause, we're not paying or paying very little. And then whatever we owe, we put it to additional months at the end of the lease.
That's so a smart idea, yeah.
If you had like a 12-month lease, then it's 14-month lease now or 15-month lease.
Yeah.
Not every landlord will be okay with it, but technically they don't have to pay mortgage, just like you mentioned it. So they should be okay with it,
Yeah, and I hope I've seen some stories kind of going around about like freezing rents in different places, but there's not like a nationwide. There's nothing that's really happening nationwide right now. So if you're in a city that happens to do that in the future, you're very lucky. I wouldn't wait for that to happen. I would really try to be proactive now before you're late on rent, because you're going to be in a better position if you are not coming out of this or approaching this conversation from an adversarial type of relationship. Like if you both are communicating, you like each other, they understand your position, you understand theirs, and you're trying to come to terms with something that's agreeable, and you consistently have been paying on time, you're not a bad tenant, then you're going to be in a better place than if you've waited until it's too late to have these conversations.
Okay, so now that we know about the loan, we know about how long we might be still closed, which could be months. Some places try to reopen the government way sooner, but we'll see what actually gonna happen. I don't wanna say actual dates because it changes by the day, but it doesn't look good as of right now for gym owners. But let's just think about this. So I want you to think ahead, because the lines at the food bank is getting extremely long and they are even running low. We even went and helped out places to be able to donate more food, and we gave 7,500 meals, but we might get in the line if this goes on for long months and everything. So you guys have to think about every scenario. So I wanted to ask Tina and talk about what will be the solution and what we're really looking at as gym owners if we won't open till, let's say, September. And on top of that, if we even open in September, will our clients come back? And it's kind of a scary question, because some clients will be scared, because if there's no vaccination, they might still question if they should go into a gym like ours, right? Even so, you will have to do so much work to convince them to come in and push that fear away, because when we did the research, 40% of our clients have said that they're not gonna come back until there's some type of a vaccine or there's no more cases in the area at all, which could be months, if not even a year or so. So guys, let's see what Tina and I were brainstorming and what she has as an answer. So I think right now, if people panicking right now, 3 months from now, it could be way worse, and that's when we're gonna start feeling the real way of it. So the only reason I'm bringing this up, because then gym owners, when they reopen, I don't know if they're going to have the same clientele, they might have to go out and get brand new clientele, completely different people who actually benefited from this instead of lost everything, right, and all these things. So what do you have anything on that, or you think you could recommend?
Well, I have seen the same probably articles that you have, or even personally. I mean, I saw a picture from the state of Texas that had 10 or 15,000 people waiting in line for 4 hours to get food. And people are, I think, going to be in for a shock in the next couple months as things continue to evolve. And I think that you may still have a lot of the same clients, and that's the people who have been with you for a long time. If they can afford you, great, they're going to stick around. But you probably are going to have a wave of clients that has lost their jobs, that won't be able to afford your services, won't be able to come in, and frankly are probably going to be scared. It's a challenge to overcome. And I haven't left my house in a month. I've been self-isolating with my husband and son here since like pretty much the beginning of March. And for me, like, I have some fear about going out and, being in public and going shopping again and going to my gym again. So there's going to have to be a lot of care around the communication and showing people that you actually are going the extra mile and cleaning, but some people are just not going to come regardless. So you may have to have a few different things happen. Continue to invest in your at-home workouts. Make sure that you have the availability and the people who are going to be putting in the time and effort, and also building a bigger community and a more close-knit community, because ultimately friends don't want to fire friends. And if you make friends with your clients, they're going to want to stick around. And then also finding different types of programs. And I'm not I don't like pushing lower cost programs on people, because I think it sets the tone that your gym or your services aren't as, they're not at the level that they are, like the quality is lower, or that you're willing to accept a lower price, forever, and that's what you deserve. But if you can come up with some sort of tailored option for people who want to work out, maybe don't have the funds, or are afraid to leave the house at a price point that's more affordable, I think that now is the time to start thinking about additional ways to kind of expand your offering, but also add things that you might not already have to help increase your overall revenue, like supplementation, like supplements, or like nutrition classes or, apparel, anything that could bring additional money in the door, I think you need to start really focusing on.
All right, lastly, the $1 million question that I always ask every amazing person who is deciding to come on our podcast and help us out. So the question is if she has any tips for personal trainers and gym owners out there for debt management, for bills, for any tricks and tips that you could use to be able to save more money, have more money, and anything that she has in her sleeves for taxes and whatsoever. So let's see.
Number one, if you don't have your financial life in order, all the advice I'm going to give you is going to be completely worthless. So you absolutely, if you are doing it, if a friend is doing it, if you have a person that you hire, you need to have accurate information. Otherwise, you're basing your judgments on, like your feelings rather than what's actually happening. So things like payroll needs to be in the right bucket. You need to have debt tracked properly. You need to really understand, what have been the trends over time. And then when you're looking at things like debt, there's some opportunity for postponing some of that debt. If you're working with like an SBA lender and you have a 7A loan currently, they should be able to postpone your payments for 6 months, maybe even 12 months, depending on the lender. I've heard of 6. I have an access to capital document that I'm willing to share with you that has a list of all the banks that we've talked to, we've seen. A lot of people are suspending interest or suspending payments without affecting your credit. So, even if you think you might be able to make a payment, but you think it might be challenging, finding those sorts of programs where you can extend terms now rather than becoming late and having it affect your credit is essential. Mm-hmm. And then finding ways to consolidate. I have a lot of people are spending money on things that they shouldn't be spending money on. They have 50 different subscriptions for things when you really haven't been using those. Take the time to evaluate, is your money going to the right place? When you're looking at your overall ratios, are you in line with your industry, or have you historically not been? And what sort of tweaks can you make to, and this is going to be challenging now, but payroll costs, operating costs, occupancy costs, things like that. And you will be in a better position as time goes on to negotiate with your landlord. So, continue those conversations even if you're shut down. So if they tell you today no, that doesn't mean no forever. It just means no today. And they want to make money as much as you do, and they want to stay afloat. Same thing with your vendors. We have offered to some of our clients that are struggling a little bit more. We have postponed payments. We have discounted our payments, and we can't do that for every single person because I still have to pay my team. But if you have longstanding relationships with your vendors, you should be able to negotiate something. And because it's obvious that everybody's in the same position. And for me, it would cost me more to go find a new client than it would be to discount them for a few months. And it also, shows them that I care about them because I do. I don't want them to be, stuck without accounting and not knowing what to navigate or how to navigate the system, which quite frankly, I have no idea how a small business owner without an accountant could have navigated the payroll protection program on their own. They change the rules so frequently and moved the bar and just made the goalpost just a little further to where it was too challenging for just an everyday business person to manage, because it was just information was coming and changing, and it was crazy. So I know that's a lot of advice. That's a lot of things to do. If you can do 1 or 2 of those things, but really if you don't have the financial foundation, if you don't really understand deeply, what is actually going on or what has historically gone on, you won't be able to look forward because you have no context.
Yeah. And one last thing before we go, because I know you're busy and you have to go, but is there any hope for independent contractors, trainers, 1099s, you think that's something coming, or that's also, we don't know yet?
So we did have some issues with that. So we were working on hundreds of applications for our clients. We have a handful of clients that operate as sole proprietors or independent contractors. That's typically not our normal client base, but we have a handful. The bank that we were working with dropped them all at once. They only wanted to work with LLCs, S Corp, C Corps, and really LLCs if you're paying people other than owners. Mm-hmm. But there was availability of funds for those types of people. What I was seeing in some additional guidance around sole props, et cetera, is that lenders wanted to see a Schedule C from your tax return, so your 2019 Schedule C. So I know that taxes are postponed, but even if you don't have a final copy where you have filed it, if it's just an interim, I'm about to file it kind of return, work with somebody to get that done, because when the new funds happen in the future, you do need to have some of that stuff ready. So you can't just, I don't want people to wait and then start the process, because going through the whole approval process, it takes it took some people like a week and a half, to even get an answer, only to be kicked off. So if you can have everything ready, then the next round should be a little bit easier. But you do have like 700,000 people that are in front of you. So start doing that work now. If you haven't applied for the economic injury disaster loan, you are qualified for it. Whether or not there are funds in the moment, that's a question I don't know, because I applied 2 or 3 weeks ago and I've heard nothing. But you should still put your application in and save your place in line. But you do need to have things like your gross revenue and your cost of goods sold ready, because that's on the application. I have a video on my YouTube channel that goes through the application. It'll take you 5 minutes if you have all the information ready. And I know that independent contractors should be included, and self-employed people should be included on unemployment insurance, because that through the CARES Act, they have added additional funds to help people in that situation. But like I said, the states just haven't caught up with that yet. So that's disappointing, but that should be fixed. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we'll have more states that are providing that sort of assistance. So check every day, like check once a day in the morning to see if there's any changes. You should be hearing, you should be seeing this come online, but talk to your peers and just stay aware and don't give up hope, because everybody's experiencing pretty much the same thing right now. And we all have to continue to have some hope, because what else, if we don't have that, what do we have? Nothing.
Exactly.
And I want everybody to be able to come out of this stronger, healthier, happier, but you got to do the work and you got to put your head down now and just, push through it as hard as you can. But there will be life after this. We just have to work towards that life.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And I'm pretty sure that the gym owners and personal trainers will know way more than before when they started this, because you gave lots of information.
Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate being able to be on this with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for watching, guys. It really means a lot to me. Our viewership and listenership went up so much higher than ever before. And obviously it has to do that you guys are sitting home, but I just want to thank you, bottom of my heart. I really appreciate you guys watching, listening. If you're watching, if you could hit that like button, it really helps the algorithm. It really helps me, really helps us out to continue going and filming, creating more jobs, and help you guys by keeping your jobs and keeping our job just by literally clicking on that like button, subscribe button, or even the comment button. All of those things, if you just do one of them, it will help us out to able to keep scaling up this podcast and bring you amazing guests like Tina. And we have planned on really amazing guests in the next few episodes. So make sure to stay tuned, make sure to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, click that ring bell up there, because you want to be reminded when these guests drop, because this could be time sensitive. Just like Tina's podcast, she gave lots of information that is time sensitive, and she also shared all the grants that you need to sign up for. And if you're not acting on it right now because you didn't have the ring bell on YouTube, then you might miss out and you never get that $10,000 or $1,000. So whatever you're able to qualify for. So make sure, guys, that you watch, share, like, everything. We really appreciate you, and I'm going to bring you as much value as I can and possibly can. And we're going to get through this as gym owners and personal trainers. So stay tuned till next week.